What is up, watch people? Welcome to another edition of Talking Timepieces with Tony. And today we are going to be doing a video on Nomos. Nomos takes over the world, as well as versus Cartier, Rolex, and Omega, and Patek Philippe. So let's roll the new intro. If you don't have a sense of humor, don't watch the intro, okay? But all right, let's get started. All right, man. So I'm going to be answering a question. Then we'll be talking about this Nomos Campus Club 38, which is actually a 38.5 millimeter manual wind watch. This watch is absolutely phenomenal, keeps amazing time, and it's like one of the most comfortable watches I own. So let's talk about the question first, and I'll try to do this. I generally just wing my videos, so I will probably miss things, and if you guys catch anything or whatever, just comment, let me know. All right, so the question I got was from Metagirl, not I met a girl, but Metagirl, or I think that's her tag. It's nice to have female viewers. That's awesome. I think I have a couple of them, so I appreciate it, and it's really good to see ladies in the watch world who appreciate fine timepieces, that actually know about them. So, and I know for a fact that she knows about watches more than some of the reference numbers and things like that on especially Omegas than a lot of people. So, all right, so the question was, and I'm gonna just put it up, and then basically I'll put it up over here. Why don't I think Nomos are a more expensive brand? Is it branding? Why would Rolex be considered better than Cartier, Omega, Rolex, etc.? Is it just branding? They all use in-house movements. They all use premier materials and watchmakers. And when is your next video? Good news. The first question I can totally answer correctly is, when is your next video? That would be this one right here. So let's talk about that. Yeah, I mean, because those are all good questions. First, let's take a sip of beer. Glorious nectar. First and foremost, when you're talking about brands like, Rolex, Cartier, Patek, Omega, Vacheron, Constantin, AP, and just countless other brands. I can't name them all, but just let's say this. First and foremost, it's the history and heritage, which Nomos doesn't have too much history and heritage. Although a very good watch, it's just not there. Rolex started in 1905, so they're about 85 years old in 1990. Nomos started in 1990. Okay, so they're a new brand, right? Rolex started in 1905. Cartier started in 1847, which made them 143 years old. Patek started in 1839, which made them 151 years old, and Omega 1848, which made them 142 years old in 1990. So they've got way more history than this little brand here. All right. So, and also, Rolex are known for, they invented the first waterproof case, the first self-winding watch, and the first date function in a watch. Omega invented the first minute repeater. Cartier, although arguably, invented the first men's wristwatch, pilot watch, and sport watch. However, their history goes back into jewelry and clockmaking as well, which is they made a clock. I can't remember what it was called, but it was almost like the invisible floating. It just made it look like the hands were like floating in nothing. So you've got all that heritage. You've got guys like Patek Philippe, and so that's one thing that just sets those guys apart from Nomos. Okay, so does it mean that the quality is better? Well, you've got again the history and the heritage. So when you look at Patek, for instance, you could have a watchmaker, and let's just do a hypothetical guy at Patek who's been there, say 20 years, loses his job and he's like, I don't like my job, I'm fired, why? And then goes to Germany for vacation and he ends up in Glashütte and they go, oh, we'd like to have you work in our factory. Yeah. And then he goes, okay, I'll take it, All right. So don't, all right. So you could have a guy essentially that has so many years working in one place and go to another place, and just as much as a guy from Nomos could go work in the Patek factory making watches. Now, can Nomos make minute repeaters, world timers that are, the way that some of these watches are handcrafted? I don't know. But another thing is you've got the fit and finish of all these other brands too, the polishing, the enamel dials, the intricacies of the dials, and the intricacies of the movement. So Nomos, where they shine, is they're a new brand from 1990. They formed just after the Berlin Wall fell. I think that was 1990, right? About 3 months after the Berlin Wall fell. And they initially started, I think, using ETA movements. ETA movements are owned by the Swatch Group. And a lot of brands use ETA movements, including like IWC. Cartier even used ETA movements. Yeah, just tons of brands. But because they're owned by the Swatch Group, now they're kind of holding those movements for themselves. And that's when Nomos said, hey, we're going to start making our own movement. Okay. So now you have brands like Sellita that make movements. They're a third-party brand, and they're used in a lot of other, brands like Oris, Mont Blanc. Just it can go on. There's a lot of them. So they're like the sort of new, what you would call ETA movements in a sense, if that makes sense. So, but just because a watch has a lot of history and heritage, a lot of these brands will also use third-party movements. Patek Philippe, for instance, uses a JLC, Jaeger-LeCoultre movements. Not in all their watches, but they've used them in the past. I don't know what they use now. Rolex also used Zenith movements, the El Primero movement, in their first Daytonas. So just because a watch has all that doesn't mean they use parts from other companies and other, and they still do that. Nomos, where they shine also, again, is everything is in-house. Every part they make is in-house, and almost all of it by hand. So that's a huge undertaking and a huge feat for a brand this young. So when you're looking at a watch like this is actually manual wound. It doesn't have a transparent case back, but if I were to take the back off this case, that movement's still decorated. That just goes to show that they put that effort and quality into their watches like that. This watch retails, I think, at $1,600, and it keeps amazing time. When I first bought it, I wasn't sure I really liked it all that much. I mean, I thought it was cool, and I thought, yeah, it'll be fun, and probably won't wear it. But the more I've worn it, the more I've enjoyed it. I love it, man. It's so comfortable. It's like crazy. Obviously, I put aftermarket straps on it, but so for the price point, you cannot beat this watch. Yes, this watch could go for quite a bit more if in certain circumstances as to what they are, what they offer. A lot of other brands that have been around for a long time that do everything in-house charge a whole lot more for something like this. Keep in mind, this is very simple. It's very Bauhaus, but, again, so is the Patek Philippe Calatrava, depending on which reference number that you get. So I hope that answers the question. I'm looking at what your question is. So yeah, I mean, you can't beat it for the money. Now they promote this watch as like your first graduate watch, someone who's just graduating and just getting into the world, which makes me feel old because I'm nowhere near that anymore. And I can enjoy it just as much as your kid that just snot-nosed kid that just got out of high school or got out of college, and especially with today's kids. What do you mean I have to wind it manually? That's too much work, sorry, man. But yeah, to know these watches and to appreciate what they are, it's pretty sick. So this particular one, again, is their sort of what you would call their entry level. I'm not sure of the reference number of the movement. It has what's called a California dial, where it has the 12, 10, and 2 positions are Arabic numbers, and then on the lower part of the case, you've got Roman numerals. They call it a California dial. This is gray, obviously, with an orange subdial second hand. And this watch is very well finished, very well polished, and is very accurate. You have to wind it every couple of days. and it's like butter winding this watch. You make sure you don't overwind it. I've had several manual winding watches that are not self-winding, and you can tell when you're winding them if they grind. You know, this is like literally, like I say, it's like butter. Anyway, that's probably enough. I'm sure I've missed stuff, but I appreciate the questions. I hope you dig my review of the Nomos. Go out and pick yourself one up, man. They're fun watches. They're inexpensive. They're not. You don't have to get on any wait list. They're there. And it's kind of that watch that you can put. I've got a red strap, an orange strap, the light blue strap, and it has a dark blue strap that it came with, and it just works, man. It's fun, you know. Pick one of these up. They're a fun watch. You know what they are when you have them. They're just, you know, I can't say enough good things about them. The only thing that I wouldn't say I like as much as the lugs are really long. So this is 38.5 millimeter, and the lugs are really long, about 47 millimeters lug to lug. Lengthwise, but very narrow. Sapphire crystal, of course, you know. The lume's actually really good on this too, you know. So having said that, that's all I got to say about that. Let's take another sip of beer, and cheers. Happy weekend.